70-year-old gardener, pure sand, roses so vibrant they look like they were painted onto the landscape. You are probably imagining a trick, some secret chemical additive, or maybe a rose variety that doesn't exist in any catalog. The truth is simpler and stranger than that. It starts with a man named Sarkhel, a researcher at a center plant in Sarkhel, India, who one day decided to test a limit that no botanist had bothered to check. Sarkhel took riverbank sand, nothing else, and planted Ingrid Bergman roses into it. Not compost, not manure, not a single grain of the black gold that every gardening manual swears is essential. The sand was clean, washed by the river's current for decades, stripped of every nutrient. And those roses grew. They bloomed. Sarkhel himself said, "Nobody has ever thought of growing roses in pure sand. I'm surprised myself. So are my colleagues." That quote is the crack in the wall of everything you have been told about soil. Because if a rose can root and flower in pure sand, then the problem is not your soil. The problem is that you have been treating symptoms, not understanding the mechanism. And that is exactly what we are going to uncover today.
वेदगात में सदगुरु की परासे ली है ये आप तो हाँ किसे कहानी पला है बात था कि निके बेसद को काक रहे हैं
If that planted a seed of doubt in everything you thought you knew about soil, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you are the first to see the evidence as I dig up each layer of this mystery. And in the comments, tell me, what is the one gardening rule you have always followed that you now suspect might be a myth? Stop for a second. Think about the last time you bought a bag of expensive potting mix. You probably added it to your rose bed, watered it religiously, and watched the leaves go yellow anyway. You felt like you were failing. But here is the thing. The plant does not care about the bag. It cares about what happens underground, in the space between the particles. Sand, it turns out, has a secret. The early 20th century gardening manuals, the ones written before commercial fertilizers took over, noted something quiet. Rugosa roses thrive in quite sandy soil. They did not say it in bold letters. They buried it in a paragraph about drainage. Most gardeners skimmed past it, but Sarkhel read it differently. He understood that sand is not emptiness. Sand is structure. And structure, when you work with it correctly, can hold exactly what the roots need. But here is the trap. If you take that same riverbank sand and just plant a bare root rose into it without preparation, the roots will dry out within hours. The water drains too fast, the nutrients wash away, and the plant starves. Sarkhel's control plant, the one he left unamended, proved that fast. It wilted, yellowed, and stopped growing. That is the failure case that most gardeners hit. They see the sand, they plant the rose, and they watch it die. Then they blame the sand. Sarkhel did something different. He took the sand and worked it. He washed it multiple times to remove any remaining silt or clay that could trap moisture and cause rot. He kept it damp, not wet. He used a rooting hormone on his cuttings, and then he built a high humidity chamber over them, just a simple plastic cover. Inside that chamber, the air stayed thick with moisture. The roots could breathe, but they never dried out. If the way that familiar failure, the wilted leaf, the crusted soil, hits your nose, feels familiar, stay with me. This is where the real trick starts. Because what Sarkhel did next is the part that most people miss. And it is the difference between a rose that survives and a rose that explodes with blooms. Here is the chemical trick that everyone skips. Sand has almost no cation exchange capacity. That means it cannot hold onto nutrients. When you fertilize sandy soil, the nutrients just wash away with the next rain. So Sarkhel did not fertilize the sand. He fertilized the rose. He applied a diluted liquid feed directly to the root zone every week, exactly at the moment the plant could absorb it. Not before, not after. And the second thing he did, He buried crushed eggshells into the top layer of sand. Not whole shells, powdered. The Universidade Federal de Viçosa decomposition table shows that whole eggshells take 6 months to break down. Powdered shells release calcium in 24 hours. That calcium is the lock that opens the root's ability to take up water even in dry sand. Sarkhel did not know the study existed. He just noticed that the roses receiving the eggs stood taller after 3 days. That moment, when you realize a traditional kitchen scrap works faster than anything in a bottle, is exactly why I test every claim myself. If you are the kind of gardener who wants proof, not promises, subscribe and join the investigation. And drop a comment. Have you ever noticed a difference after using eggshells? I want to hear your exact experience. Some people hear this and think it is too much work. You are not that person. You already know the difference between waiting months and waiting hours. So here is the step-by-step that turns your sandy patch into a rose factory. Step 1. You take that riverbank sand, or any coarse builder's sand, and you wash it 3 to 4 times in a bucket. Fill, stir, let it settle, pour off the cloudy water. You want the sand to run clean. This is critical. Unwashed sand contains fines that clump and rot the roots. Clean sand breathes. Step 2. You mix 1 teaspoon of powdered eggshells into every gallon of sand. Do not use chunks. Use a coffee grinder or mortar. This is your calcium reservoir. It will not wash away because the sand does not react with it. It stays where you put it, waiting for the root to call. Step 3. You plant your cutting or your bare root rose. You water it once, deeply, with about 2 gallons per bush. Then you cover it with a clear plastic bag or a cut bottle. This creates the high humidity chamber. You leave it for 7 days without opening it. Do not peek. Every time you open it, you release the moisture that the root is depending on. At what point in this video did you realize you have been burying peels and shells wrong your whole life? Write it in the comments. I need to know how many of us were taught the same mistake. Now, the hard part. After 7 days, you remove the cover. The rose will look soft and pale. That is normal. It has been living in a tropical chamber. You slowly harden it off over 3 days, leaving the cover off for a few hours each morning, and then you start the liquid feed. 1 tablespoon of a balanced liquid fertilizer per gallon of water, applied directly to the sand every 5 days. Not on the leaves, on the sand, directly where the roots are hunting. Here is where most people quit. They try it once, do not see instant results, and go back to the synthetic bag. But the ESALC study on soil pH shifts measured the change on day 8, not day 1. Sarkhel's roses took 2 weeks before the first new leaf unfurled. Patience is the mechanism. The sand does not hold a reserve. Every drop of food must come at the exact right moment. Miss it by a day, and the plant stalls. Hit it consistently, and the rose explodes. Remember the ant invasion I warned you about when I told you about the whole banana peel? Same principle here. If you leave the sand surface dry, you attract nothing. Keep it damp, but not wet, and you create a barrier that pests cannot cross. Sarkhel used a thin layer of crushed charcoal on top. Charcoal keeps the surface dry and prevents fungus gnats. You can do the same with a handful of barbecue charcoal, crushed fine, spread over the sand. Sarkhel grew 4 varieties in his pure sand experiment. Ingrid Bergman, deep red. Phora, a coral that catches the morning sun. Shocking blue, a lavender that smells like old roses should. And Miss Harp, a white that opens like a fist releasing. All of them rooted, all of them bloomed, and every single one outgrew the control plant that was planted in the same sand, but without the eggshells and the liquid feed. The botanists who heard about this were not speechless because it was magic. They were speechless because it violated the assumption that soil must be rich. It turned out that the mechanism was not richness, it was precision. Sand is a blank slate. It does not fight you, it does not hold grudges. It simply delivers exactly what you give it, right to the root. If you give it nothing, it gives nothing back. If you give it calcium and liquid feed at the right time, it hands that straight to the plant. The old gardener's secret is not that he knows something the scientists don't. It is that he watches. He sees the leaf curl, and he knows, not because a manual told him, but because he buried the last eggshell 3 days ago, and the plant is telling him it needs more. Sarkhel did not have a PhD. He had a hunch and a bag of river sand. That is the kind of attention that turns a struggling rose into a spectacle. If you want to master this kind of observation, you cannot afford to miss the next video, where I reveal the exact combination that accelerates root growth by 40%. Subscribe now so you get it the moment it goes live. And before you leave, answer this in the comments. What is the one change you are making to your garden tomorrow based on what you learned here? Now imagine your rose bush 3 days from now, standing under that humid morning sun, the earthworm you saw in step 2 still working its magic underground, the eggshell powder you buried yesterday already feeding the soil microbes that will feed your plant next week. That image is not a fantasy. It is a direct result of understanding the mechanism. In the next video, we are going deeper into what happens when you combine coffee grounds with crushed eggshells and a specific waste from your kitchen sink. The result will change how you water your garden forever. But for now, here is the CTA. Agora que você sabe o que nem os botânicos entendem, olha para o seu pé de rosa murcho. Amanhã cedo, antes do sol subir, pega a areia do rio. Mistura com o pó de ovo, rega e volta aqui semana que vem para me contar o que aconteceu. O segredo do jardineiro idoso não é mágica, é paciência. Inscreva-se e venha colher com a gente. Wait, there is one more layer, and it is the one that connects everything you just did. The sand does not just deliver nutrients, it delivers oxygen. Roots breathe, and in clay soil, they suffocate. In sand, every grain is a pocket of air. The rose that Sarkhel grew did not just survive. It thrived because its roots were breathing deeply every second of every day. That is the invisible advantage that no fertilizer bag can replicate. So here's the question you need to answer for yourself. Tonight, before you go to bed, you have watched a man grow roses in pure river sand. You have seen the proof, the dates, the varieties. What is your excuse now? Not your soil type, not your budget, not your lack of space. The mechanism is clear. The only ingredient you lack is the patience to watch and the discipline to feed exactly when the plant needs it. That is the old gardener's real secret. Not luck, not magic, just attention. And now you have it.